Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. The Kyuubi, it's almost upon at the gates. We can't hold it back any longer. A bloodied Konoha shinobi yelled, while pointing past the large village entrance. Meanwhile, standing above the northern gates of Konoha was an old man, who at first glance most would think should be nowhere near a war zone. But for those of the Hidden Leaf Village, he was their greatest hope at this trying time. He was the Sandaime Hokage, and although not the current leader of the village any longer, was still one of the strongest shinobi the village had. He let a slow stream of smoke leak out of his mouth before setting his pipe down on the ground. Setting his gaze back upon the most powerful Biju known to exist, he shouted orders to the nearly demolished shinobi army standing before him. Calm down. All we have to do is hold it back until the Yondaime's preparations are complete. Do not throw your lives away needlessly. This foe is beyond any of you, do not think otherwise. Anbu, force the beast back and get it into the forest, we need space for the Yondaime's plan. The shinobi army regained their stability and hope after their ex-leader's words. The Anbu began throwing jutsu after jutsu against the behemoth they were facing, and while not harming the beast did as was ordered, getting it into a clearing within the forest a mile away from the village. Hospital. Kushina-chan, Gomenasai, I'm sorry, very sorry, this is the only way the Kyuubi can be stopped from destroying the village. A blonde-haired man spoke softly to his wife, who had just given birth to a healthy baby boy. This man was the Yondaime Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. Namikaze Minato. But why? Why him, Minato? Why our precious Naruto? Will you really leave me with nothing once this is over? She yelled out accusingly, while she rocked her baby back and forth in her arms as she cried heartbroken. She was a very beautiful woman with red hair flowing down to her mid-back, and the bluest eyes you'd swear was the ocean. She was very strong both physically and emotionally, but it was her personality that told you who she really was. She disliked fighting, and never understood anyone who would choose violence to get what they wanted. Despite this, however, when it came down to it, she was a fierce shinobi, deadly and beautiful. The phrase, if looks could kill, would come to mind at first glance when she was adorned with her Junin battle gear. Her reputation was well deserved, back when she was still a full-time shinobi, but that was years ago. Now she was currently the head of the Uzumaki clan, a clan well known unto itself for their shinobi prowess. He smiled down at his crying wife. Because he is our own Sochi, son, how could I ask someone else to sacrifice their child when I didn't even have the faith to choose my own? I'm sorry, my Koishi, beloved, but it has to be him. As for me, well, I am the Hokage after all. Minato leaned down and kissed his wife, caressing her cheek slowly, remembering every detail of her face before he picked up his son. He gave one final glance to his wife. Between her cries she nodded to him, knowing that no matter how much she begged, it had to be those two that saved the village from this beast. I love you, Kushina, she heard him say. With the last syllable spoken, the Yondaime disappeared in a flash of brilliant yellow light. Forest. The Kyuubi, tired of playing games, was about to launch one of its more devastating attacks against the remaining shinobi army, when a large puff of smoke blurred the battlefield. Sorry I'm late, all of you. A voice called out from within the smoke, easily recognized by the shinobi to be their Hokage. Everyone please get back. You have done your job, now please get medical attention for yourselves and others, leave the rest to me. He ordered. The shinobi were hesitant to leave, but reluctantly did as was ordered, leaving only the Yondaime on top of his summoning, the frog boss himself Gamabunta and the Kyuubi. Hey old man, I need a favor. Minato seemed to speak to himself until a plume of smoke appeared next to him on top of the frog's head. What is it, Hokage-sama? He smirked at the wizened man. First, you can drop the Hokage-sama crap. And second, I need you to take care of my Sochi, who is just outside the gates in a clearing like this one in the forest. Take him back to Kushina once I finish with the Kyuubi. And make sure he is treated fairly by the village. I know people can be unfair to Jinchuriki, but Naruto is a hero, not a demon, and I want him treated as such. He frowned at his request. I will do as you asked. Minato. I don't suppose that you'd let me be the one to sacrifice myself to seal it, would you? Gomen no can do. There are too many unknowns with sealing a biju like this. Only the person who knows the mechanics of the jutsu intimately should do it, in case something goes wrong. Guess you're their leader again after this. Good luck with that paperwork though. He finished with an evil yet happy smile to his friend. Sarutobi placed a hand on his friend's shoulder, smiling back, before nodding and disappearing in a swirl of leaves. The Yondaime began the intricate set of hand seals to begin his jutsu, while the Kyuubi and Gamabunta faced off. After nearly 30 minutes of non-stop fighting, the jutsu was finally ready. Goodbye everyone, please take care of yourselves, and I hope my faith wasn't unfounded with my son. Goodbye my Koishi. Naruto, I love you, I'll be watching you. He thought before biting his hand and activating his technique. Although the village hidden in the leaves had recovered from the Kyuubi's onslaught, there was still a black mark on the village that wouldn't be forgotten for many years. The village itself was holding up fairly well. The main problem was the amount of shinobi still left. Most died on that day 2 years ago, and the numbers have been low ever since. Most of the village citizens that knew this were surprised they weren't already fighting against Iowa for their lands. God knows they would lose that battle eventually. So they could only be glad that a miracle has kept that from happening so far. However, with the times as they were, many of the remaining shinobi considered officially leaving the village and going to another to start a new life with a more stable environment. One such group decided on exactly that, the Uzumaki clan. Currently inside their compound, Kushina and Sarutobi discussed her clan's decision on departing the village. Kushina-san, don't do this, the village needs you and your clan's strength now more than ever. I know this is a troubling time for your clan, it's a troubling time for everyone. But the only way we can get past this is if we all stay together and rebuild this village like a family. He pleaded. Hokage-sama, I know what you are trying to say, and although I can understand where you are coming from, I'm in the same predicament. My clan is nearly gone because of what happened 2 years ago. There are only a few dozen of us left. Not only that, but I've seen the way this village looks at not only Naruto, but the clan itself for housing and their past protection him. The glares and the whispered voices of demon whore, evil, demon lover. So don't tell me about family and in this village. Especially since this ill will towards him has transversely rained down upon the rest of the clan. Which is why myself and what's rest of my advisors have decided on the only plausible course of action. I, Uzumaki Kushina, head of the Uzumaki clan, hereby banish Uzumaki Naruto from this clan. I will be putting him into the orphanage, and leaving him to you and the village once we leave. Sarutobi couldn't believe what he was hearing. He knew about the glares and words, but he never thought they would affect the clan this much, and especially not the Naruto's own mother. For the past 2 years she seemed to love the boy unconditionally. Confusion was clearly written on the old Hokage's face. What is the meaning of this, Kushina? Why are you abandoning him? You never cared about what the villagers thought before. So why now? Do you really not love? A heavy hand slammed down on the table between them, halting his sentence, and he saw an icy glare marred on Kushina's face, with her jaw clenched tightly, a look that made him both slightly flinch and bite back a gasp. He had only ever seen that expression on her face when she was ready to kill an enemy who so richly deserved death. Don't you dare ever question my love for my Sochi, son, Sarutobi. I love my Sochi. I'd do anything for him. I'd kill to protect him. I'd die in order to let him live. She barked, her glare only hardening at him. But that thing residing in his room isn't my Sochi, at least not anymore. Tell me, Sarutobi, do you have any idea what it's like to have a Sochi that your neighbors, your friends, your entire community hates with an undying passion? Question mark. Do you have any idea what it's like to run into your Sochi's room in the middle of the night because you heard strange sounds only to find him thrashing around unconscious with red chakra all over him, ripping the sheets with claws and tearing the pillows apart with fangs like an animal? Like Kyuubi. Do you have any idea what it's like to wake up in a cold sweat because of the nightmares you've had every single night since that dreadful night a year ago, depicting your own Sochi who looks like a demon kill your loved ones and lay siege to your home, all with a bloody smile on his face and looking at you with the same eyes at it? She yelled out, before going wide-eyed, not realizing until it was too late what she just admitted. Sarutobi's eyes widened in shock at her confession. He accessed the Kyuubi's chakra. Why wasn't I informed? Why didn't you tell me, Kushina? I need to get Jiraiya here to make sure the seal isn't breaking. He growled at his friend's disastrous actions. She gave him a deadpan look. I may be a retired Junin Sarutobi, but I was the wife of a seal master. Do you honestly think Minato-kun taught me nothing of his arts? I know about the Shiki Fujin and its abilities. The seal is not in jeopardy of breaking, but that doesn't explain what I saw that night nor how it's possible. There is a safety seal within the larger seal that was supposed to prevent its chakra from manifesting until an appropriate age. If that wasn't there, then what would stop it from breaking free? Because surely a 2-year-old's mental will, whether subconscious or otherwise, couldn't be strong enough to hold it back alone. And besides, what would the village think if they felt its chakra once again? They'd go on a rampage and have you take him from the house and kill him to protect the village. That was the reason I put those seals on the mansion in the first place, should such an event like this happen unexpectedly. Her explanation allowed the Hokage's shoulders to slump in relief. Before his eyes hardened towards her, she had still yet to explain everything about her decision for her son. She easily saw this and scowled, knowing he wouldn't give up until he knew why she did what she did. It's because after everything, the villagers, the nightmares, the chakra incident, I realized that reality was trying to tell me something. Something that I refused to believe, but I knew deep down in my heart to be true. That my Naruto-chan had died, that night the chakra took him over, that I lost the one piece of Minato-kun I had left in this world. And now every time I look at him, all I see is the demon that was sealed inside him and what it has taken from me. Naruto-chan may not have become the demon itself until that night, but now all I see when it smiles, that pseudo-warm smile, and hear when it tell me it loves me, is its evil smirk and its cold, lifeless laugh. Laughing and smirking that it is still alive while Minato-kun is dead and my little Naruto-chan is trapped inside his own body, probably knowing that if Naruto-chan dies, so does it. She explained, as tears of a mother's mourning and wife's emotional anguish fell down her face. Before she recovered and got back her steely gaze, the tears still flowing down. As for its banishment, it is what is best for the clan. The less we now associate with it, the better when we leave this village. She stated in a monotone voice, now devoid of any emotion. Sarutobi could see she spoke the truth. She only saw her own son, the savior of the village, as the demon now. His heart broke. The one person that he thought would always be by the boy's side was the one to actually order his exile. I see. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, nay. Very well. Obviously nothing I can say or do will change you or your advisor's mind on this. However, as Hokage, I would like to know where you and the clan are headed. Kushina nodded at his request, finding it understandable considering his position. We have received an offer to be the new bodyguards of a powerful lord deep in my native land of Whirlpool Country. We will be leaving the village tomorrow. I see. Very well then, I'll have the departure papers ready before then, he said, getting up from his spot, heading towards the door and sliding it open before turning back to her. This is probably the only time I'll ever say that I'm actually glad Minato is dead right now, because if he saw what you are doing to your own child, he would probably kill himself. You should be ashamed, Kushina. He finished and walked out, wanting to get the taste of this clan out of his mouth. The next day, the northern gates were filled with one of the most powerful clans in Konoha. Said clan was preparing the last items to their wagon for the long journey to Whirlpool to start their new lives. The Sandaime Hokage was there as well to see them off, and wish them well in their new village. So you are really going through with this, Kushina? He asked sullenly, staring at the happy little blonde boy, next to his mother. She scowled. Yes, it will not follow us where we are going. Our reputation will not be tainted any more than it already has because it took the body of my Sochi. She released her hold on Naruto and gave him over to an Anbu standing next to the Hokage. If that really is your wish, I only pray Naruto never remembers this, because he would never forgive you. He surrendered, glancing at the now confused boy. Kushina bowed slightly to her ex-commander-in-chief, before signaling for her clan to leave. Naruto tensed when he saw his mother begin to walk away, and not call him to follow. Ka-san, he called out. The clan kept walking, sneering at the boy as he called out to her. Ka-san, he screamed louder, thinking she just didn't hear him. Nothing. They simply kept walking and were already a good distance away from the gates. Seeing this, Naruto began to struggle with the Anbu that was holding him, with frightened tears beginning to fall down his cheeks. In Naruto's over-emotional state, an instant flash of red chakra surged through him, stunning the Anbu, forcing him let go. Without missing a step, Naruto began to run to his family, hoping to catch up, hoping maybe they just forgot him. Damn, I was really hoping to avoid this. I know Naruto will never forgive me if he find this out too. Sarutobi thought with a disappointed frown, before signaling the Anbu that had been holding Naruto to proceed with the plan. Naruto was a mere 20 yards away from reaching his mother, when he saw a bunch of Iowa shinobi jump out of the surrounding forest and attack the clan. The surprise attack was devastating, and most of his family was killed on the spot. His mother was barely able to stand from the 5 kunai lodged in her body now. Tears freely flowed from the boy's eyes as he could only watch his family get slaughtered right in front of him. Finally, the boy couldn't take it anymore and screamed a blood-curdling scream, as he watched his mother stabbed to death a few yards away. The shock to his system was too much before he simply blacked out. I see. So Sarutobi-san had a plan just in case after all. I'm not surprised though, seeing how he is your Hokage, Kushina stated as the rest of her clan simply watched in disgust, as well as mild satisfaction as the Anbu picked up the boy, slid his mask back over his eye, and shunshed back to gate. Let's go, we have a long way to our new home, everyone. Kushina ordered. The gates. I heard that scream. A simple genjutsu would have sufficed. That was more than was necessary for the plan I discussed. Sarutobi said to the Anbu with a hint of venom in his voice. Gomenasai Hokage-sama. I just thought if I made it as real as possible, the boy would accept it that much easier when you tell him what happened. The Anbu answered back, with a hidden smirk behind his mask. Sarutobi narrowed his eyes at his subordinate. Do not think it will be that easy. Meet me at my office tomorrow morning for your punishment. Kakashi. There has already been enough screaming today, I do not wish for more. Sarutobi took the boy from Kakashi and disappeared towards the orphanage. A young boy could be seen running through the moonlit streets of Konoha, exhausted beyond what a boy his age should be, yet still running nonetheless. He had bright blonde hair and ocean blue eyes, with 3 whisker marks on each cheek. He was the savior to the Hidden Leaf Village. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, but for those who lived in Konoha, he was only the demon. He wore disgusting garbs not fit for any person to wear, they smelled horrible, and were ripped to shreds barely hanging onto his obviously malnourished body. He turned a darkened corner and met the one thing he wished he hadn't, a dead end. He turned to run back, but alas, the mob of villagers and some shinobi had caught up to him, cornering him in that dreadful alley. Ah, finally stopped running, nay demon. A man sneered. Good, I was getting tired from running after your little. Another agreed. We'll take good care of you, demon, just like the Yondaime would have wanted for desecrating his only son's visage. A third one concurred. The mob slowly walked towards the boy who was huddled against the wall crying, wishing for someone, anyone to help him. Why are you doing this to me? I never did anything to you. I'm not a demon, I'm just me. I just want to be left alone, Paige. Please. He pleaded, tears running down his dirtied form. Ah, the little demon wants mercy. How detestable. Where was your mercy when you were slaughtering our Ka-san's mothers, and 2-san's fathers, our Oni-san's sisters, and Oni-san's brothers, huh? The first man barked back. The mob lost all self-control after the final words of their family's losses was spoken, and simply beat the hell out of the little boy cowering in fear of them. Right before the final blow was struck, the boy turned into a log to the mob's frustration. They turned to see the half-conscious, bleeding, and broken boy in the arms of one of the few people who had ever protected him from them. Sadly, he was one if not the strongest person in the entire village, the Sandaime Hokage. And just what the hell do yo people think you are doing to him? Sarutobi yelled, letting his ki wash over the mob, making most into crying, sniveling babies. We were simply finishing what the Yondaime started, and what he'd want us to finish if he was still alive. The demon took over his only Sochi's body for Kami-sama's gods, Sake Hokage-sama. One of the few ninjas associated with mob had gasped out. He narrowed his eyes at the group. I see. Well, I've told you fools for the past 5 years what happened, and I'm tired of repeating myself. Anbu. Take care of these fools, they have broken my law and will pay the consequences. A squad of Anbu puffed out of nowhere, and did the hand signs of the infamous Uchiha clan's signature move. After the fires finished the mob off, and the screams finally subsided, Sarutobi shunshed into his office with a medical team already prepared for the boy. It only took a few hours for the medics to stop the healing, knowing the demon will do the rest of the work. They'd rather save their real chakra for people who truly deserved it. The Hokage dismissed them, however, not before having a little chat about medical ethics and certain lessons involving a searing hot kunai and certain appendages and orifices. After about 10 minutes, Naruto finally awoke from his bloody encounter, finding himself not in the alley anymore but an office. He tensed up and shot glances for the nearest exit. It's okay, Naruto, you know you are always safe in this office. In voice all too familiar to Naruto called out. You saved me again, Oji-san, grandfather. Hi, yes, and those men won't be bothering you again, Naruto. I bet you are hungry. I'll go get us some tea and snacks, nay. Naruto's stomach growled at the mention of food, and furiously nodded his head, erupting a small laugh from the old Hokage before leaving. Naruto decided to explore the office while he waited, and was checking the bookshelf when he noticed a book that seemed out of place for where it was. He pulled the book out, but it stopped mid-pull when one of the floorboards popped up. Of course, being a curious child, Naruto knew no better, and went to check out what was going on. He lifted the floorboard and saw two scrolls, one being a lot larger than the other, as well as a box with a strange symbol etched into the top of the wood. Naruto randomly picked up one of the scrolls, unfurled it and began to read, never realizing this little incident would change his life forever. October 25th. Dear Sarutobi-san, as requested, I've sent this letter to let you know my clan and I have reached our destination in Whirlpool Country safely. There were a few problems along the way, but nothing we could not handle. The Lord seems impressed with our strength and very happy with our Kekkei Genkei, and as a result he has already hired us for his protection. Also, our clan has integrated into the shinobi ranks of this country, and have been out on a few high-ranked missions already. Other than that, I have nothing left to report to you. I hope your health is keeping you strong. I also hope that the demon is keeping himself quiet as to not attract attention. Even though we are not a part of the village anymore, I don't want the village's reputation to be tarnished by the demon that used to be my Sochi. Be safe and stay well, Hokage-sama. Uzumaki clan head, Uzumaki Kushina. Naruto was literally shocked stiff from what he just read. The scroll fell out of his hands without the pressure of his fingers gripping it and made a thud on the wooden floor when it landed. Wah! What's going on? I don't understand. I saw them die. Even my Ka-san didn't live. But this scroll was dated 15 days after they died. Either it's a lie, or Naruto thought before it dawned on him, after picking up the scroll and rereading the last sentence. It's not a lie, they all left me here. They didn't want me anymore and left me in this village. Even my own Ka-san thinks I'm some kind of demon and wanted nothing more to do with me. He concluded his thoughts before he fell to his knees and broke down crying from learning the harsh truth. Sarutobi re-entered his room with a smile and a plate of snacks and tea, only to witness what he hadn't expected. Or at least not come to witness for another decade. The secret floorboard opened with its contents spilled across the floor and the owner of them crying after obviously reading their contents. Naruto. Quick as a flash, Sarutobi was at the boy's side, patting his head in a comforting gesture, hoping the boy hadn't read too much, but fate wasn't on his side it seemed. Oh. Ojii-san. Why did my Ka-san leave me? I'm not a demon, am I? He questioned between his cries, his voice sounding desperate and guilty. No sooner had he spoke did the old Hokage snatch the boy up in a hug, and repeatedly tell him that was a lie. After some time Naruto stopped crying but stayed in his grandfather's arms. What happened that day, Oji-san? I saw my whole family killed, and yet I just learned from this scroll not only is my entire clan still alive, but my own Ka-san seems happier and healthier, without me. With a heavy sigh, he explained to Naruto in detail of his backup plan with a certain Anbu in case the boy had tried to follow the family that day 4 years ago. Naruto, after absorbing the tale, at first looked at the Hokage with utter hatred and betrayal. But soon realized that he was actually happier thinking his family was dead than learning the truth of his own abandonment, and hugged the old man once again in appreciation for trying to protect him, even if it was lying to his face every day. They stayed like that for nearly an hour before Sarutobi realized Naruto had actually fallen asleep. He looked at the boy with a sad smile. He must have worn himself to the point of exhaustion, but I can't blame him. He learned so much that he wasn't supposed to yet. I hope this won't change things for him too much. He whispered, never realizing just how this one event would change the Naruto he knew forever. Mindscape. Naruto awoke to the sound of water dripping. He looked around completely scared from the lack of familiarity of where he was. 1 minute he was in the Hokage's office and the next he is in a place that reminded him of a semi-flooding sewer. Finally getting to his feet, he noticed pipes running along the ceiling, and decided to follow them, hoping they'd lead to a way out. After a few minutes of the twists and turns while walking along the path that seemed to go on forever, he reached a rather large open room. What was curious though was that about a few dozen yards away was a set of golden gates, and in the center of it above where the keyhole appeared was a piece of paper with the word, seal, written across it. Astounded by the sheer size of the gates, Naruto absent-mindedly trudged towards them, never realizing the danger just beyond those shining bars. So, you have finally come. Naruto, a deep voice bellowed out, seeming to come from every direction of the room. Naruto was startled to say the least at the booming voice, and wanted to run far away, but there was no escape because the voice seemed to come from every direction. He had only one real choice, realizing that he didn't know how to escape, and going back the way he came would just make him lost, to stand there and find out exactly where this voice came from. Gomenasai. I don't really know where I am or why I'm here. Just want to leave if that's okay. He yelled out, his tone doing nothing to hide his fear. The voice returned, only this time laughing soundly. Do you wish to know these things then? Hi, I'd also like to know who you are. He answered. The voice snorted in amusement at his answer. I will answer the first two questions, and if I deem you worthy, I will introduce myself. As for where we reside, we are inside your own mind. As for why you are here, well, not even I can answer that. This is your body after all. But the why should not matter, because it is very fortunate for you to have done so, this early. It answered sagely. I see, arigato, so I'm inside my head, so it's like I dream. I guess. But if that is true, why don't I know your voice? And why is it fortunate for me to be here with you? Perhaps I should introduce myself even if you aren't worth to know right now. You might be able to prove it after this conversation is over. Naruto, come closer to the gate if you wish to know what I am. The voice said before sighing and taking in a breath, giving Naruto enough time to walk to within a few feet the gates. I am a demon, to put it as simply as I can. To be more specific, I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the lord of all Biju. More importantly, right now, I am your prisoner in this place. The voice finished, before walking up to the gates as close as it could, revealing itself. Naruto almost jumped out of his skin when the voice's form came into the light. After all, it's not every day you come within a few yards of a 50-story red fox. Why? You're huge. Quite astute. As for your observations about where we are, you're wrong. This isn't like a dream at all. This is literally your mind, the deepest recesses of your mind, but your mind nonetheless. By now you already know why you didn't recognize my voice, so I will not waste the time to explain. As for the last thing, it's fortunate because I was not expecting you to show up for another half-decade or so. Which means we can start your training more than 5 years sooner than I had planned. After learning what the voice was, Naruto listened intently to each word spoken, trying to understand the best he could. After the fox finished the explanation, Naruto, though getting some questions answered, more seemed to pop into his head, and he voiced them without consequence. How exactly did you get imprisoned, as you put it, inside me? And what training? You mean like shinobi training? Isn't it a bit early to be training as a shinobi? I'm only 6. That is an interesting story. My imprisonment occurred the very same day you were born, and your father died. The story that was told to you about my fight with your village and Yondaime Hokage was only the half-truth. While I was defeated, I was in no way killed. Your father simply sealed my soul, inadvertently destroying my physical body, into a newborn baby. Now, while I dislike losing, in all of its forms, I must commend your father in his actions as dangerous as they were, and I have a begrudging respect for him for his sacrifice. The same way as I respect you for yours, even if it wasn't your choice. Which is why I decided that when you came to me whenever that was, I would train you in the shinobi arts. Naruto absorbed the story like a sponge. When it finally hit him, he finally understood why everyone called him a demon and wanted him dead. So, I'm a demon then. He whispered to himself with a sad smile on his lips, though Kyuubi easily heard him. Well, at least I now know why everyone hates me and my own Ka-san and clan abandoned me. Arigato for the explanation and the compliment, Kyuubi-san, he said, trying his hardest not to cry, but soon let the thought go and let his head fall and cry into the flowing pool at his feet. Ha, ha, trust me, little one, you are the farthest thing from a demon, and I should know. You must understand that the humans in your village aren't attacking you because they want to. It's because they cannot reach me in here. So they think that by hurting the container they are also hurting the prisoner. You are simply a means to an end. Of course, if they weren't blind to their hate and sadness, they would know that all they were doing is hurting an innocent child. Now, I'd like to change the subject back to training you. I would like to begin as soon as possible. Meaning, once you get out of here, I will need you to ask your Hokage to leave the village to train, but do not mention I will be the one training you. If he asks, just tell him that you want to learn to defend yourself, which is still true, so you won't be lying. Naruto was listening, as his cries became less and less, until he completely stopped and just watched as the Biju explained things. How can I believe you? How do I know you aren't trying to trick me somehow? You tried to destroy the village. You took my 2-san away. You made my Ka-san hate me. How can I possibly trust you or your words? He yelled. Not knowing what to make of this situation, he silently wished his mother or father was with him to guide him. The Kyuubi's eyes widened slightly in surprise at the boy's outburst, before narrowing dangerously, and when Naruto saw its teeth glisten vicious, he mentally wished he could take back his outburst. Do not question my pride by accusing me of lying. Especially to a mere human such as yourself, boy. I may respect you, but I have killed mortals like yourself for far less than what you have just done. It bellowed, clearly not happy with Naruto. However, after its pause, its eyes seemed to soften, if only a little bit. But to answer your questions, what reason would I have to lie to you? To escape. If I could have escaped, I would have within the first days of my imprisonment. To influence you mentally or physically. I can easily do that now, but I have no inclination to. You have suffered enough by the hands of your own community, I need not add to it. As I said before, I respect your sacrifices to hold me at bay, and respect is given rarely to a mortal by any demon, and even more rare by their lord. I have no proof to give you so that you may trust me, aside from my words. It is up to you whether you believe what I've said or not and wish for my assistance. It finished, its tone clearly softer than moments before. Naruto stared at the large beast, trying to discern whether it was lying to him or not. He didn't want to believe it because the fox was one of the people to actually tell him truths he had been wanting to know for several years. Also, if what the fox said was true, that means it could have easily taken over his mind or body anytime it wants, but only held back because of its simple respect for him. He let out a sigh, his thoughts swimming on what to do or believe. He wasn't sure whether to completely believe the beast, but so far it has done nothing to harm him, nor trick him in any obvious way. I'll trust it, for now. He mentally concluded. I understand. Naruto spoke again, letting a small smile graced his lips before bowing low, surprising Kyuubi once again. Arigato, thank you, Kyuubi-sensei. I believe you, and what you have told me is the truth. I will do as you instructed, and speak with Oji-san about leaving. And arigato again for allowing me the honor of learning from you. I will do my best to show your respect wasn't unfounded. Anyo, if I may ask a few things though. He questioned submissively, getting a slight nod from the beast. Anyo, you don't exactly seem to be the bloodthirsty demon everyone describes you as, so if I may ask, what possessed you to attack the village? The second question is just curiosity about what you will be teaching me. A low rumbling from the throat of Kyuubi slightly shook the room, as it let out a growl at Naruto's first question, before what could be considered an almost sad expression dawned on its face. I have allowed you to know what I am. The first thing you just asked I do not feel you have any right to know at the present time. Perhaps when you show me as my student you are worthy, I will tell you. As for your second question, I will be teaching you many things, most of which all shinobi must learn, ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu. However, since I am a demon with the knowledge of a millennia at my whim and an almost limitless jutsu library under my belt, your training will be different to say the least. You will not only learn basic ninjutsus, taijutsus, genjutsus that all shinobi learn, but long-lost jutsu that no one has witnessed for at least 500 years, and could only hope recognize from the earliest recordings of chakra usage in the world. Aside from that, I will also be teaching you kenjutsu, as well as several of my personal onippo jutsus. When your training is complete, I can guarantee that you'll be the strongest shinobi that has ever, or will ever walk the face of the mortal realm. It explained, and by the end its maw stretched into a crooked but not evil smile. Naruto's eyes went wide at everything the demon told him. Ideas raced around in his mind a mile a minute. He never would have guessed that the thing that caused him so much pain could actually be such a blessing in disguise. Though after rethinking the last line the Kyuubi spoke, he couldn't help but grow a giant grin across his face at the implications. Let's get wild. The Kyuubi chuckled at the boy's new enthusiasm. Very well. First things first, my student, you must get out of your mind so you can ask your Hokage for permission to leave. But do not worry. The moment you entered this place, a connection was made between us, so now we are able to speak to each other telepathically. One more thing, Naruto, it explained, getting a nod from the boy, before its eyes took on soft and sad look with his smile turning into a guilty frown. For what it's worth, about your two-san and family, gomenasai. It apologized, slightly bowing its head. Its apology made Naruto's eyes go wide. Never before had any of the people of his own village apologized for his clan's behavior towards him, let alone their own actions against him. And yet here was the very beast that caused all this to occur, bowing and apologizing to him when it certainly had no real reason to do so. Hi, Kyuubi-sensei, and, arigato. But it's them that should also be sorry for abandoning me like that. As you said, you and I are not the same. I am no demon, he answered back, bowing yet again, with a slight hatred in his voice towards everyone who hurt him. Thinking back to his original thoughts about this place being like a dream, Naruto concentrated in his mind, reciting, "This is just a dream," before he vanished from view inside his mindscape. Hokage's office. Ah, so you've finally awoke, Naruto. The old Hokage spoke with slight relief in his voice, looking at the stirring boy he placed on the small couch in the corner of the room. Naruto opened his eyes, and smiled gently to the aged man. Hi Oji-san, guess I got a little emotional, didn't I, hey? Well, that nap certainly helped me come to terms with a few stuff, believe it or not. And actually I have a big favor to ask you, he said, while getting up and standing in front of the Hokage before bowing. Oji-san, I wish to ask for permission to leave the village to receive training to become a shinobi, so that I may defend myself against attacks like this from villagers or other shinobi who wish to harm me. To say Sarutobi was shocked at the boy's request would be an understatement. However, he could certainly understand the boy's reasoning, seeing what a shinobi's strength can do firsthand. He was torn, however. If it were up to him, he'd just let the boy go to train. But the village council would never allow it. They'd fear that another hidden village would capture him and kill him, taking away their advantage of a Jinchuriki, or worse yet, use his untapped power against them later. Looking at the pure determination and hope in the boy's eyes, he grunted in defiance and snapped his fingers, waiting only a moment before an Anbu-clad man shunshined into the room. "Hi Hokage-sama, I have a personal S-ranked mission for you, Anbu-san. I wish for you to take Naruto here out of the village and teach him the ways of the shinobi. I will leave it up to you in what form you teach him, what you teach him, but know this: I want him back in 6 years' time to graduate the academy. However, contact me once a month on his progress and skills learned. I do not wish to be out of the loop for when he finally returns. As for your identity, until this mission is over, your codename will be Yamato." The Anbu saluted his leader. "Hi Hokage-sama, I accept this mission." The man, now known as Yamato, responded, taking off his Anbu mask and smiled at the young boy. "We will leave tonight then." He finished before grabbing Naruto and was about to shunshin out of the office when the Hokage spoke up. "Wait, Yamato," he ordered, walking to the open floorboard, picking up the other unopened scrolls in a small wooden box, handing them to Naruto. "You should take these, Naruto. It may not have been your time to read these, but it seems fate has other plans. And I know whatever else are in these will probably make you stronger, so take them, they are your birthright." Naruto looked shocked for a moment before giving his grandfather man a smile and hug. "Arigato Oji-san," he thanked, grabbing the scrolls and box, letting Yamato shunshin them away. "This is going to leave me with a rather large headache in the morning, I just know it," Sarutobi thought, rubbing his temples, already feeling the migraine start from the inevitable council meeting that will occur later. Orphanage, Naruto's room. Yamato and Naruto appeared in the middle of his room in a plume of smoke, the ragged place smelling of mold and rust. "The boy lives in this place. The Yondaime would be furious if he was still alive. Of course, if he was still around, none of this would be happening," Yamato thought as he shook his head while scanning the small room. "Naruto, you have 10 minutes to grab anything of importance to you for the trip. Might I suggest clothes and food?" "Hi, Yamato-sensei," Naruto said before running around his room looking for anything useful he might need. The 10 minutes went by quickly, and when Naruto told Yamato he was finished, grabbed the boy's shoulder and left the room. North Village gates. "Ready, Naruto?" "Hi. We'll head to the border of Fire Country so we can have our privacy while training." "Hi, Yamato-sensei." After the little dialogue, the two were off for their 6-year training trip, but what no one realized is that they would be seeing a legend being born that day. After a few miles of walking, something in the back of Naruto's mind kept prodding him. Until a low voice could be heard, if only just barely. "Naruto. Kyuubi-sensei. Hi. Good, you can hear me now. It took nearly an hour of yelling to get your attention." "Gomen. Guess my head is just a bit full at the moment with all that's happened today. What was it you needed me for, sensei?" "When I said I would be training you, I meant that. You are my student and my student alone. I will not have you be taught under anyone else but me. Is that understood?" "Hi, Kyuubi-sensei. Good. Now what I need you to do is as quickly as you can run in the opposite direction of Yamato, and I will do the rest. And do not worry, I will not harm you with what I have planned, so trust me as your sensei and do as I have ordered." Naruto gulped slightly, not liking the word harm, but didn't see the reason his sensei would have any reason to harm him, especially after their chat. "Hi," he thought, before drawing a long breath and turning in the opposite direction, running as fast as he could. Yamato didn't notice for a few seconds since Naruto was slightly out of his peripheral vision, but noticed soon after the boy took off. "Oi, Naruto! Where are you going?" he yelled, jogging after the boy. Naruto simply ran, his legs burning from running as fast as he could for so long, but soon noticed something strange. He watched as transparent flames began to rise and engulf his body. He was scared and nearly decided to stop when he remembered his sensei's words, and just kept running. Yamato was nearly upon the boy when the final bit of flame flicked across Naruto's blonde hair, and the next moment, the boy vanished. Yamato was stunned. At first he just thought the boy actually had some knowledge of the shinobi arts and used a substitution, but dismissed that when he could not feel the boy's chakra anywhere, he literally vanished without a trace. "Hokage-sama isn't going to like this one bit," Yamato sighed out, praying the punishment to light, before running back to the village. Hokage's office. "Forgot something, Yamato-san," Sarutobi called out to thin air while signing paperwork, before a puff of smoke revealed the Anbu. No, Hokage-sama. More like lost something," he answered, immediately feeling ki wash over the room. "Before I do something I'll regret, tell me what happened," Sarutobi finished. "Well, I don't really know myself. One minute we were walking together, then Naruto started to run away from me. Then next a transparent flame engulfed him and a moment later he was completely gone, no chakra signature or anything, he just vanished." The ki immediately died, and Sarutobi slumped in his chair, realizing what might have happened. The Kyuubi came into contact with Naruto somehow, and was able to use one of its jutsus to escape. "What should we do, Hokage-sama? With the Kyuubi involved, there is nothing we can do, we don't know the demon at all. Hell, we don't even know why it attacked Konoha, most people just assume because it's evil. It could have taken Naruto anywhere. Hell, it could have been Naruto this whole time too, just trying to get an opportunity to escape, and I played right into its hands. We have no leads or insight to its plan, therefore all we can do is hope Naruto is somehow safe. Yamato-san, for now your mission is over, please pretend like this night never happened, understood?" "Hi Hokage-sama," Yamato answered before disappearing. "Damn it, Kyuubi. Just what in the hell are you planning with him?" Sarutobi thought before taking up his pipe and inhaling a long drag. The news of the demon's disappearance spread like wildfire in the following week. Celebrations took place, as most of the population of Konoha cheered the hopeful death of Uzumaki Naruto. Much to the Hokage's grief, during said celebration, word got out to the younger generation of Naruto's tenant. Many drunken fools lost their lives that week. Sarutobi, however, couldn't have argued more against those fools' thoughts, he just wished Naruto would come back. Little did everyone know that his wish would be granted, but the Naruto that returned to the village would not be the same Naruto that everyone remembered who had left. For the past 6 years, there was an air of peace inside the Hidden Leaf village. Citizen and shinobi alike seemed happier and more at ease knowing that the darkness that was the Kyuubi wasn't still lurking in their midst. Little did they know the village's darkest secret, and most vile possession was about to walk right back into their village, just as he had walked out of it all those years ago. Northern Gates. Walking along the dirt road headed towards the gates of one of the most powerful villages in the world, a shinobi could be seen. Nothing much seemed out of the ordinary about him. He was fairly tall, his silver hair spiked in such a manner that seemed to add almost a full half-foot to him. His lazy walk indicated his lack of motivation to do anything, or the fatigue of a mission he had just completed. The oddest thing was, however, that he was walking while seeming to keep his eyesight completely focused on a little orange book in front of his face. And if one were to listen intently, one would hear perverted giggles coming out of the man every so often. The other strange thing was his face. It was almost completely covered, partly by his headband, which could be considered strange on its own. He wore his shinobi headband angled diagonally, fully covering his left eye. The rest of his face, save for his right eye and upper right cheek, was also covered by a shinobi mask, used to hide the identity of the user. Coming upon the gates, the man could hear the two gate guards complaining about their jobs. Not having much to do himself, he simply waited and read until the pair noticed him in the large archway. After a while the bickering finally ended and the two guards noticed their guest, still lazily waiting for them. "Ah, Kakashi-san, you're back from your mission, I see. Well, even knowing it's you, I still expected you not to be back for another week at least. How did it go?" Azumo spoke, knowing Kakashi from a few previous missions they were on together. "Yo, can't really complain. It was a rather simple A rank. A bunch of bandits and Ronin were trying to terrorize a town which is under the protection of Konoha, so I dealt with them," he responded lazily, not taking his eyes off his precious book. "Ah, not surprising from the copy ninja himself. Well, I won't hold you any longer. Welcome back." Kakashi simply nodded to him and walked nonchalantly into the depths of the village. Once out of range of the guard house, Kakashi jumped to the nearest rooftop and set his hands in a familiar sign, before a puff of smoke engulfed him and he returned to his true form, the form of Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto sighed and shook his head. That was far too easy. Oji-san needs to put some better genjutsu-oriented guards at the gates. Not like it would have made a difference, Naru-kun. You know, only dojutsu users, and those with certain kekkei genkei, bloodline ability, can sense this jutsu, while only other demons have the ability to dispel it. A muffled voice from within the recesses of Naruto's jacket answered. Naruto smiled warmly and unzipped his jacket to allow a little fox to climb out and jump on his shoulder, wrapping its tail comfortably around his neck. The little fox yipped and licked the man's cheek before resting its head against his neck. He scratched the fox behind the ear, making it lightly purr. Hi, right as usual, Natsu-chan. Guess it's time to see the old man. He's probably been worried sick, he finished with a bit of guilt obvious in his voice, before bounding off to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. Damn this paperwork. Minato, I swear, even if it wasn't for the protection of the village, you'd have still used that fuinjutsu just to get out of any more of this damnedable paperwork. Sarutobi grumbled loudly, from behind his paper-littered desk. Tisk tisk. Never thought I'd hear the Hokage whine about his job. It's quite unbecoming of a leader, nay. A voice teasingly scolded out of seemingly everywhere inside the office. Show yourself. I know where you are. I just don't know who you are. And if you are good enough to sneak into this office without setting off any alarms, then introductions can wait, since I don't believe there will be a need for them in a few seconds. Sarutobi said, already in his best defensive stance he knew, since he didn't know how powerful the enemy was, so going on the offense wasn't the best course of action right now. Ah, you forgot me already. I'm heartbroken. I mean, it's only been about 6 years since we last saw each other, and here I thought we had grown close. Oji-san, Naruto finished, still hidden but with a large smile plastered on his face. He knew the Hokage was old, but he was still quite spry, and would get it in a minute. A long silence filled the room before Sarutobi's face lit up, and fell back into his chair in shock. Naruto, is that really you? Naruto decided enough was enough with the smoke and daggers routine, and stepped out of his hiding spot. To say Sarutobi was shocked was a rather large understatement. He wasn't expecting Naruto to return in such a feat of skill. And if that wasn't enough, how Naruto looked would have certainly put the poor man in the hospital with a heart attack if he wasn't a veteran shinobi. The best way to describe the Naruto the Hokage saw in front of him now was a mini Minato. Standard Konoha Junin garb down to the T was worn by the boy. His hair was longer and more wild, but his blue eyes still shone with the same light as they always had. Kami-sama Naruto, you look just like your two-san, only shorter, he said, chuckling when the boy's eyebrow twitched at the mention of his height. By the way, Naruto, who is your sleeping friend? He asked, noticing the little fox asleep around on Naruto's neck. Naruto smiled, while once again scratching the fox's ear, getting something akin to an animalistic moan from it. She is my dear and close companion. She's been with me ever since I left this place 6 years ago. By the way, Oji-san, do you mind sending your Anbu out of the room? I didn't go through all this trouble to get in your office undetected to have them listen to what I have to tell you alone. Yamato-san can stay, however, since he was my sensei for however brief it was. He requested with a knowing smirk. Sarutobi smiled at the boy, who seemed to simply be nonchalant about everything, while just paying attention to his little companion. The Hokage snapped his fingers and a squad of Anbu made themselves known. They all bowed and left through the door but one, leaving only the three. Gomen Naruto, but you have to understand that it was necessary just in case the Kyuubi was still in control of you. Though in my opinion, if it was, the village wouldn't still be standing, and I'd be in trouble. Save for you and a few others, you're correct, this village would be rubble. The fox thought, making Naruto chuckle lightly. Well, since the topic has actually changed to why I'm here, might as well get to it. But first I want to explain a few things about the Kyuubi. Firstly, there was a very good reason why it attacked the village 12 years ago. Secondly, while you are correct that the Kyuubi isn't controlling me, the fact of the matter is that Kyuubi had never controlled me at all. I left at my own discretion, and it was actually Kyuubi that was my sensei while I was gone. The final thing, because of this seal's purpose other than containment, who you see before you isn't the real me. Oh, and the Kyuubi is a woman, hence why I never said him or he. He finished, rapidly went through a short series of hand seals, while the little fox jumped to the floor right next to him. Kai, release. He spoke before a large plume of smoke surrounded both him and the fox. The smoke soon dissipated, and both Yamato and Sarutobi were speechless, their mouths hanging open at the sight. Instead of a teenage Naruto standing before them, there were now two people who looked to be around their late 20s or early 30s. The man on the right was rather tall, and very handsome. He had an athletic-looking body, his toned muscles not overly huge but still quite visible, only slightly straining the fabric of his shirt and pants. He was wearing official Konoha shinobi attire, although the color scheme was obviously his own. His flak jacket was a very dark orange with the Namikaze family seal on the back and was open in the front. His pants, shoes, and short-sleeve shirt all black, with two kunai holsters on each thigh, and his blank shinobi headband strapped to his left arm. He also wore a black mask like Hitaki Kakashi does, but he had already drew it down from his face. However, the most dramatic change was the man's physical appearance itself. His once golden blonde tresses now were a dark orange, matching his flak jackets in color. His once ocean blue eyes were now a beautiful dark amethyst, with slits running down their middles. His whisker marks, which identified him as the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, were now more pronounced across his face, as were his teeth that were now elongated into fangs and nails into claws. His normal ears were now replaced with orange fox ears with white tips that ended a few inches above where his hair stopped. And if that wasn't odd enough, there were also 5 white-tipped orange fox tails swinging back and forth behind him. To the man's right stood a very beautiful woman, a few inches shorter than him but no less intimidating respectively. She too had an athletic body, but still had very generous curves, along with a rather well-endowed chest. Her garb was quite similar to the man's, only her colors were black and red. She wore an open blood-red flak jacket also with the Namikaze family seal. Her pants, sandals and sleeveless shirt were all black, however she wore no mask to hide any part of her face. Her physical appearance more than the man's, both shocked and put fear into Yamato and Sarutobi, as well as give them both a few lewd thoughts in the backs of their minds despite the situation. She had fire crimson hair which fell to her mid-back, with a few strands falling over her face. Her eyes shone with a deep ruby glow with black slits down their middles as well, both cunning and playfulness easily detectable within her orbs. 3 pronounced whisker marks, and elongated fangs adorned her flawless face. Her claws easily apparent while her hands were resting on her hips in a bored manner. Fox-like ears and 4 swaying tails behind her were also apparent, only they were red with black tips instead of dark orange. The best phrase that could easily describe the two together were, deadly sexy. Wah! What exactly is going on here, Naruto? What the hell happened to you? And just who is this woman? The Hokage finally formed the words he had been searching for while he assessed the changes. Naruto just smiled at his grandfather's dumbfounded look. That is a long story, Oji-san. And right now I'm too tired to tell you the whole story. But I promise I'll tell you everything in the greatest detail tomorrow morning. But to answer your quicker questions, because of the fusion of my chakra and Kyuubi's, I had to become what humans call a Hanyu, a half-demon, to accommodate all of her chakra in my body. This is my Hanyu form you see before you, and is now my true form. For your second question, now don't freak out or anything because there is nothing to worry about, I assure you. This was the fox you asked me about earlier, just in another form. Her name is Natsumi, but most humans know her as the Kyuubi or Kyuubi no Kitsune. Both Yamato and Sarutobi both took an unconscious step back after learning the identity of the beautiful woman standing in front of them. Nah, Naruto, just how is this the Kyuubi? Your father sealed her. If she is out, then that means that the seal failed and she can go on a rampage. The Hokage choked out before bringing both his hands into his cage robes in search of his kunai. If you described by freedom in this form to be correct, then I very well could go on said rampage, and destroy this pathetic village. Natsumi sneered in a low voice indicating her seriousness. Ma, that's enough scaring the wits out of Oji-san, Natsu-chan. Naruto said in a sing-song voice, while he got behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. Natsumi felt his strong arms wrap around her, and she just let out a soft sigh, leaning back against him. Okay, Naru-kun, but only because I know he is precious to you. She responded, nestling her head in the crook of Naruto's arm. Both Sarutobi and Yamato quirked an eyebrow at the show of affection the two just showed each other. Are you too? Yamato let the question float, while raising his hand in a fist next to his face, leaving his pinky out and wiggling it slightly. If so, how is that even possible? Naruto just smiled at what Yamato was getting at, and just hugged Natsumi closer before answering. That is part of the story, so you'll have to wait. But like I said before, I will let you know everything tomorrow morning around 9 a.m. Oh, and I do not want any unwelcome guests, so I expect only you two in the room when I get here. So till then, I'll wish you a good day. He finished preparing to leave. Wait, Naruto, there are some things you should know about the village. After you left, well, the more ignorant villagers held a week-long celebration at your disappearance, and eventually word got out to your generation of who you are. So even though most people think you are dead after so long, They still know you were the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi. I just thought you should know. Maybe it'll help you conform back to village life here, but I truly apologize for letting your secret get out like that, whether you were here or not. Sarutobi apologized, bowing lightly to the man and his companion. Naruto thought over what he heard, and just smiled at his grandfather. It's okay, Oji-san, even if they didn't know already, they would know soon enough since I'm back. I'm not ashamed or sad to be Natsumi's jailer. It's given me an opportunity to be something I could not be without her, plus she is a great sensei. I learned so much from her that I never would have with any other sensei. He said with a smile, not noticing the slight blush across the cheeks of the woman he still held in his arms. But since that fact remains, I will keep up a henge so the villagers don't go crazy over my return yet. Naruto released Natsumi from his grip, went through a few hand seals creating a puff of smoke, and Naruto was now hanged so his tails were gone, his ears were back to normal. His eyes had normal pupils but still held their magnificent shade of purple, and his mask was over the lower half of his face. His uniform was back to the standard Konoha Junin colors, even the Namikaze symbol was replaced with the red swirl like all leaf flak jackets had. Natsumi was back to her little fox form that she had entered in as, sitting back on Naruto's shoulders, while nuzzling her snout against his cheek. I'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow, Oji-san. If you need me before then, I'll be at my Two-san's estate. Remember what we talked about and what you saw, doesn't leave this room. Naruto finished, heading towards the door of the office before stopping. Oh right, Anbu, he said seemingly to himself before a purple translucent flame surrounded him, shunshining him out of the office. Rather impressive. Shunshin effect, Yamato-san, what do you think about this development? Yamato furrowed his brow. I think this village will be a lot less quiet from now on if Naruto has come back for certain, especially with what he said he is now. Sarutobi started rubbing his temples from the anticipating days to come with Naruto's return inevitably being spread throughout the village like wildfire. Yes, I can already see the riots starting, he sighed, actually glad to get back to his paperwork to keep himself occupied from thinking about the future. Yamato bowed and left the Hokage to his devices, returning to his Anbu duties. Konoha. Naruto was walking down the rather desolate streets of the village. It still being early in the morning, he hadn't thought many people save for Shinobi to be up yet, so he had no need to rush around to get to his Two-san's compound. He swiveled his head back and forth, taking in the sights that were new to him since he left, as well as the fond ones that he had missed. His short and quite literal stroll down memory lane was abruptly stopped when Natsumi puffed out of existence after sniffing the air, causing Naruto to lose concentration to his surroundings right when he turned a corner and bumped into someone. Hey, watch where you are going! A feminine voice slowly yelled out. Gomenasai, I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. Here, let me help you, Naruto apologized, crouching down to help her with the bag of groceries that she has spilled during their collision. I should make you pay for all this, she retorted with a sigh, while getting off her butt after landing on it from the fall. They had picked up her groceries without another word spoken or even looking at each other. There was one last item left on the ground which they both tried to grab, causing their hands to touch for only a moment before retracting from each other. The woman finally looked to the man she had bumped into, only for her eyes to go wide as dinner plates. It's you, she whispered out accusingly. Naruto too had finally looked at the woman, and was rather surprised to see who it was as well. She was wearing a doctor's uniform, only slightly greener to designate her a veterinarian, which covered her entire body up to her knees. Her ninja headband wrapped loosely around her neck, slightly concealed by her uniform's pulled-up collar. Wow, Hana-san. Well, it is certainly a surprise to see you out this early. How have you been since we last saw each other? Naruto questioned, chuckling over the coincidence. Oh, you remembered what she looked like? Natsumi teased. Hey, well, what can I say? The saying is true, we all like a little animal in the opposite sex, after all. And who have we met that is more animal than her? Plus, she was quite cute back then, and has only grown more beautiful since then. Hell, even you said she was rather attractive when we first saw her. Naruto retorted with a subconscious smirk. Flashback. 2 years ago. Forest surrounding Konoha. Mizuki. How could you betray the village like this? How could you betray me like this? A younger-looking Hana screamed at a white-haired man holding a bloody kunai in one hand, and a large scroll in the other. Simple, really. I needed to prove my worth to Iowa, and stealing the forbidden scroll of sealing from the village was the perfect way. Konoha has gotten fat and weak from all this peace. It's sickening to watch as a shinobi like us. I decided I would go to a village that has more to offer me and the skills I possess as a shinobi. As for you, Hana, well, what can I say? You had the greatest body from your graduating class. And I needed some stress release from all the missions I went on. Which you gave, and even more than I first imagined. I remember the way you used your tongue, and twisted that body of yours. I'd take you right now if I didn't have more pressing matters to attend to. But I certainly won't ever forget your taste, just like fresh strawberries. He finished, while licking his lips and looking at Hana in a very carnal manner. Hana didn't know what to do. She was only a newly ranked chunin, and the rest of her team had been killed by either traps laid out for them, or by Mizuki himself. She was totally alone with even her nin dogs already unconscious, weaponless, and drained of chakra, as well as heavily bleeding on her right arm with a deep wound from a shrapnel trap. Mizuki saw her trying to think of something to turn the tables, but smiled when he saw the hopelessness in her eyes at her situation. I couldn't help but notice you've finally realized there is nothing left that you can do. And despite me thinking of taking you with me and becoming my slave, I doubt Iowa would allow it and would just kill you anyway, so I'll do the merciful thing and let you decide how I'll kill you. He jumped from his superior standpoint on a tree limb above her, hitting the ground with a thud, and slowly walked up to her with the scroll now latched onto his back. He bent down and picked her up with one arm by her flak jacket, and looked into her eyes, before grinning madly and leaned towards her, sliding his tongue across her sweat-ridden neck, and up her face, stopping at her cheek. Yes, definitely strawberries, he said in a husky, and slightly insane voice. In a last-ditch effort before she died, Hana reached over and sunk her fangs into Mizuki's neck, easily breaking the skin, and when she tasted blood only clamped down harder. Arg, you stupid bitch. Get the hell off of me. He yelled before stabbing her in the stomach with his kunai, making her scream and let go. Mizuki threw her off him and pressed a hand to the wound, trying to stop the bleeding, while looking at the crumpled form of Hana, as his blood dripped from her mouth and down her chin. He snarled. Fine. I thought I was being generous with letting you choose the method, but you are being very difficult, so I will just choose for you. He walking over and grabbing one of her comrade's bloody katanas, before going back to her with a smirk. You really were the best I ever had, but I guess I have to put this bitch down. He spat, before raising the sword for the finishing blow. Mizuki was about to bring the sword down, ending Hana's life, when a large wave of flames seared towards him from the bushes just outside of the clearing. Mizuki saw the attack and jumped back away from Hana. He looked for who used that jutsu. It wasn't a jutsu he had ever seen before, so he was rather on edge and already in a defensive stance because it could very well be some backup for Hana. The wall of flame finally died down, revealing a man wearing Konoha shinobi garb while crouching down in front Hana. Hana had seen the whole thing from the flames attacking Mizuki to the man appearing out of nowhere in front of her, who was now healing her wounds. The only reason she wasn't trying to get away other than the fact she couldn't, was that he was a Konoha shinobi, from the clothes he wore. Just who the hell are you? Mizuki shouted, but received no reaction from the man. The man just finished healing Hana's more serious wounds, before finally looking up at her. She held back a breath the moment her brown eyes met his dark amethyst. After what Mizuki said about her and their relationship, and the predicament she was in, he had no idea why she was blushing when she looked at this man, but she couldn't lie to herself and say the man wasn't very handsome, or at least what she could see of him anyway. Try not to move till I'm finished healing you, alright? He ordered softly and received a nod in understanding, before he stood up and faced the still unnerved Mizuki. I'm just a shinobi passing by, but I happened to overhear your conversation with this young woman, and decided to say hi. He smiled, though it couldn't be seen with the mask covering his face. If that's so, then just leave. This has nothing to do with you. If you don't, I'll have to kill you too after I finish off that bitch you just healed. The man simply shrugged and did a few hand seals before taking a knee and pressing his hand to the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning technique. The man brought his hand up slowly, and out of the ground came a katana with a red hilt, resting inside a black sheath. The man grabbed the sword when it completely finished coming out of the ground, hooked it to his left hip, and pulled out the sword, letting the blade slide across his thumb so the entire edge was covered in blood. Hake. Shinku Kaijin, release. Crimson Ash. As soon as the last word was spoken, the blade burst into flame. No, to be more exact, the blade itself turned into the flame that was now being jutting out of the red and black hilt. The man did a few test swings with the new sword. With each arc, the flames seemed to move and grow almost like the tail of a comet that followed the Ma'an flame where the steel blade once was. It then resumed its natural state and size when the sword stopped moving. Mizuki was taken aback at what he had seen. He wasn't one to admit his fears to anyone, but he was scared now, and all three of the people still conscious knew it simple by his body language. Seems I'll have a new sword after this is done as well. He bluffed while smiling the best he could while hoping the man couldn't sense his apprehension to fight. If you believe you can take it from me, then try, but if I were you, I'd just return that scroll to her and be on your way. Because I can assure you that any other route you take now will not be pleasant. The man stated coldly, looking straight at Mizuki with an emotionless gaze, as thin strings of purple chakra began to slowly radiate off his body. His body is actually giving off chakra. Hana thought, flabbergasted at this fact. She had never heard of visible chakra except with certain jutsus, usually A rank or higher. And yet this man was giving off chakra from sheer force of will and emotion alone. Why? You think you can scare me? Well, try this kinjutsu I learned from this scroll. Mizuki threatened before putting his fingers in a cross seal. Taju Kage Bushin no Jutsu, multiple shadow clone technique. The entire field puffed in a plume of smoke, revealing nearly 25 Mizuki clones. The original simply had an arrogant smirk plastered across his face, reveling in his superiority over the intrusive man. It's the quality of the shinobi, not the quantity. If you took this lesson to heart, you would have used the chakra required for that jutsu for a more effective one against me. The man retorted, before swinging his sword in a horizontal arc. As the blade arched, the flame tail began extending outward almost 50 feet, easily cleaving the shadow clone army in half, as well as a few dozen trees. After the tail returned, the man saw Mizuki, who was still alive if only known by his blood-curdling screams. Most of his clothing had burned to a crisp while his right arm had multiple gashes. However, the oddest thing was that his gashes and clothes were actually still aflame. If the smell in the air indicated anything, it was that the flame still burned both the open flesh of the wound and any blood that seeped out, along with the fabric that still rested on his body. Mizuki tried to pat the flames out, but they simply burned hotter and fiercer, causing the man to scream in even more agony. "You cannot put that flame out, only I have the power to call it back. If you give up and promise to never return to Konoha, I will let you leave." The man offered, never taking his gaze off the screaming man. "Or, why, you put that fancy sword down and listen to what I say, and maybe I'll consider letting the bitch live," Mizuki chalked out through gritted teeth. The man turned back to Hana only to see another Mizuki holding her hostage with a kunai against her throat in front of a tree. "Teesh, missed one, I must be losing my edge," he though berating himself for the slip-up. The man did as he was told while facing the real Mizuki, and dug the sword into the ground with the sharp edge facing Mizuki at his feet. "Good, now move away from the sword," he ordered. The man followed the order, and took 10 large steps away from the sword, closer to Hana and the clone. Mizuki began to limp his way towards the sword, keeping a deadly gaze on the swordsman. Mizuki was about a foot away from the sword and went to grab it, but the man had other plans and in one swift motion brought his right arm in a vertical arc above his head. Out of nowhere, the dormant sword seemed to grow a life of its own and moved in the arc motion the man just did. To Hana it seemed like time stood still. One moment Mizuki was about to grab the sword, the next said sword was lodged into both the trunk of the tree only 3 inches from her shoulder, and down the middle of the shadow clone's head. The next moment another blood-curdling scream echoed throughout the forest as the vicious plan of the man came full circle. The real Mizuki was the one who screamed. Why? Because as Hana was witnessing, his body was cleaved cleanly in half down the middle, so cleanly in fact Mizuki's body didn't register the slice until just then, when his 2 halves began to separate from each other, his screams dying with it. If Hana wasn't so completely exhausted, she'd have probably thrown up, from what she has just witnessed this stranger do. Her body flinched when the man jerked his arm back, the sword pulling out of the trunk and flying back to him, catching the hilt in his hand. The man began to fumble with the hilt for a minute, before resheathing the sword, and it poofed out of existence. He used ninja wire to tie the hilt of his sword to his wrist, she though surprised, but finally answering the question of just how the hell he pulled off that attack. The man began to walk back towards her, and from sheer fear her knees buckled and she fell on her butt against the tree. She closed her eyes tightly when the man reached her and took a knee in front of her. She had no idea what the man planned on doing now, whether it be make her his slave, kill her, or the worst thing she could think of, rape her. After a few moments nothing happened, but then a warm sensation enveloped her body when a hand gently grabbed her upper arm and another pressed itself against her stomach. She slowly opened her eyes to see the man with a look of concentration in his eyes, as her entire body was encased in a light purple aura. After a few minutes he released his grip and stood up, looking down at her. "I just finished healing the rest of your wounds, so you should be okay to move around freely. But I suggest taking it easy for a while till you regain enough chakra," he said in a warm tone, a tone opposite of what he was speaking to Mizuki with. He held out his hand to help Hana to her feet. She hesitated for a second before taking it, being pulled to her feet. She took a moment to regain her stability, before she finally took in all that happened. Her entire team was dead, her nin dog was close enough to it, though she noticed out of the corner of her eye that the man was currently healing him. "She is pretty cute, don't you think, Naru-kun?" Natsumi asked inside his head with a sly voice, only getting an affirmative nod in response. She just stared at the destruction and havoc the surroundings had taken, not only from the battle of her squad and Mizuki, but also the man's flame attack. The ground and surrounding underbrush were all scorched along with nicks, cuts and holes. The man came back to her side with her dog in his arms, giving him back to her, and then latched the scroll to her back with some wire. Gomen for your team, but there is nothing more you can do for them. You should go back to Konoha and alert the Hokage about this and to send a medical team to clean this up. The man suggested sadly, before turning and walking towards the denser part of the forest form whence he came. Matt, wait, what's your name? She asked, her voice slightly panicked. If for nothing else, she wanted to at least know the name of her savior to maybe repay him one day. I don't need thanks or recognition for what I did, I simply did what was right, that is all, take care. He retorted bluntly, taking a final look back at her with what she thought was a large smile across his masked face, before he vanished into the forest. Arigato, Shinobi-san, she whispered against the billowing winds before heading back to Konoha, hoping that she'd meet the mysterious shinobi again to maybe thank him properly. Flashback end. Hana's shocked expression reverted to a saddened one when she remembered that day of betrayal and death. I've been okay since then, she answered quietly, images still flashing in her mind. He offered her a small smile, slightly visible through his mask. That's good. You're a strong woman and a steel-nerved kunoichi. It's why I left you on your own back then. I knew you could handle yourself after I healed you. And I knew what happened wouldn't keep you down for long. Hana blushed slightly from the compliments, as they both stood up after getting all her groceries back in her bag. Gomen, about yelling at you before. Quite alright, Hana, I should have been paying attention to where I was going. Was completely my fault, he said, putting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. I assume you are walking home since you have groceries. Would you mind if I walked you home? It's the least I could do for bumping into you and delaying you. He offered kindly. I appreciate th gesture, but no need really, my house is right here. She answered, turning her head towards the rather large house with the Inuzuka clan symbol above the doorway they were currently standing in front of. Ah, hey, alright then. Well, I've delayed you enough, I think, so I'll let you get inside. Be safe, Hana, I'll probably see you around. He finished, taking his hand off her shoulder and began walking. Wait, please. Tell me your name, you left me without one for 2 years. I would like to know it this time. Hana shouted, shrinking slightly at how loud and panicked she sounded. Naruto turned to her, a small smile on his face as he got into a thinking pose with his pointer finger tapping his chin. Well, let me ask you first, what do you think of the demon boy Uzumaki Naruto who disappeared from the village 6 years ago? In a flash after he finished his question, he was being painfully pressed against the gates of the Inuzuka's property, by a feral-looking Hana with a kunai pressed against his throat. Her eyes shone in an almost uncontrolled rage, her fangs gritting so tightly you'd think they would have chipped from the pressure. Don't you dare call Naruto that ever again, do you understand me? Naruto is not Kyuubi, he is just a young boy who had the unfortunate fate to house the most powerful Biju no to exist. He is our savior, not a demon. And I don't care even if you did save me back then. I swear to Kami-sama I will take great pleasure in skinning you alive and feeding you to my nin dogs if you call him that again in my presence. Do I make myself clear? She growled out, making her point known by making a small cut across Naruto's neck and mask, drawing a few drops of blood. Wow, she is quite protective of you, Naru-kun, and if memory serves, you've never even met her before that day. Hey, she'll be a bit embarrassed once she finds out that she is attacking the very person she is trying to protect. Natsumi said with a chuckle. Hi, you're telling me, though now I'd like to know why she is. You are right, I've never met her before that day, so I don't know how she knows me or why she is acting like this. Though she certainly went up a few pegs in my book of people I like. He thought back with a smile. Okay. Gomen, I didn't know people even still liked him, and even more so since he left. I won't call him a demon again, I promise. Hana looked into the man's purple eyes for any indication he was lying but found none. She slowly released her grip on his flak jacket that held him to the gate in her kunai before taking a few steps back from Naruto. Hi, well, there are my family and I will always be loyal to that boy no matter what. So don't go spewing nonsense about him that isn't true. She answered before a shout broke the tension. Oi, people are trying to SLE. Oh Hana, it's you. What are you doing out here? A woman in a red kimono shouted after just emerging from the Inuzuka's porch. Oh, and who is the man there? She asked, just noticing Naruto against the gate. Gomen Ka-san, I was just coming back from the vet's with groceries when I bumped into my friend here. Hana said with a flush across her cheeks from embarrassment. Oh, well, get you and your friend inside so you can continue talking without waking up the neighbors. I get enough complaints from them about the kennel, I don't need any from my kids too. Sume said in a stern voice, while eyeing Naruto. Finally, after 2 long years she is finally talking to men outside of her team. Hopefully this may lead somewhere. She needs the companionship, especially after what Mizuki did to her. She thought as she watched her daughter and young man enter the house. Inuzuka compound. Naruto strolled inside the house of the Inuzukas only to have his sense of smell attacked with the essence of dog. The house he noticed was surprisingly large compared to how it looked from the outside, but still held a homely feel to it. From the entrance there was the kitchen to the left, a living room to the right, while going straight led to some stairs leading second floor, presumably the floor containing bedrooms and bathrooms, and if you went past the stairs to the left, it led to, if the sound being any indication, the kennel Sume mentioned earlier. Naruto couldn't quite dwell on the finer descriptions of the house, because Hana's mother began to push him deeper into the house and into the living room, where a small oak table stood in the middle of the room. Please make yourself at home, Mr. Sume said, leading him to take a seat at the table. Truth be told, I'd like to talk to both of you if you wouldn't mind. There is something I have to ask you, before I introduce myself. Naruto answered, trying to change the subject of introducing himself. Sume quirked her eyebrow, easily telling the man was apprehensive in name himself. She took his hint and played along, knowing she'd get the answer out of him before he left. Alright, I'll make us some tea then. Naruto let out a soft sigh, thanking God Hana's mother had dropped the question, for now anyway. He looked around the room slowly, noting a few things, such as family pictures and the like. He smiled softly, seeing a picture of Hana smiling with her nin dog companion, which looked like it was taken after he had saved her. I'm glad she was alright after all, he thought to himself, before Hana's voice knocked him from his current thoughts and into a set of brand new ones when he looked in her direction. Naruto's eyes widened slightly when he saw Hana enter the living room. She had now abandoned her loose-fitting uniform for a snug short-sleeved black t-shirt with "Can't touch this alpha bitch" in white lettering on the front that showed off her rather sizable bust, which he failed to notice from previous meetings, and black shorts stopping halfway down her thighs to give him a very generous view of her long and toned legs. Her hair, which had been prior to then bound in a ponytail, was now freely flowing down to her shoulder blades behind her, with her headband resting nonchalantly just under her collarbone. Wow. He calm down there, Naru-kun. Natsumi teased, but still, wow, is right, didn't think she was packing that kinda heat under that chunin vest or doctor's uniform, did you? She teased even more. Quote. Naru-kun. Natsumi asked, snickering lightly at the man's lack of attention. Quote dot dot dot. I'm just glad I have this mask over my face, and table in front of me, he finally said. All he could now hear was Natsumi's full-blown laughter in the back of his mind after his statement. Hi, I doubt she'd be as entertained as I was when you first saw me, if she saw those reactions from you right now, she responded through giggling fits. Did you even hear what I said? Hana asked, her brow twitching slightly at noticing the glazed-over look in his eyes as she talked to him, after she grabbed a seat at the table. Before Naruto registered her question, she noticed an odd scent in the air floating around him. At first she couldn't place it, but it soon clicked, and she was none too happy, even if a slight blush adorned her cheeks and what it meant. What the hell? The bastard is ogling me like a piece of meat. I wouldn't be so pissed about it if he not only didn't diss Naruto earlier, but wasn't so obvious about it with his scent. Even if he does smell good enough to eat, she thought angrily, and then furiously at her final thought, quickly squashing it just as quickly as it was formed. Naruto was knocked yet again out of his thoughts, and had the decency to look sheepish at her question. Gomen, there was something important on my mind, would you mind repeating? I said, just because my Ka-san invited you in to not forget what I said outside. She repeated, with a slight vein bulging on her forehead, knowing exactly what important things were just on his mind. I made you a promise. I do not plan on breaking it, and again I apologize for how I phrased my question, but it was rather important that I asked you. Tea is ready. And what was important? Sume asked while walking into the living room with a small tray of tea and teacups. Well, Ka-san, I should probably begin with the fact that this was actually the man that saved me from Mizuki Tem 2 years ago. Sume listened to her daughter speak as she took a seat at the table and began to pour the tea. She abruptly stopped with a shocked expression on her face the moment she heard that the very man who she invited into her house and was sitting across from her was the man that had saved her precious and only daughter, and less important to her but still important, Inuzuka clan heir. Sume put the teapot down, and moved back from the table slightly to get into a kneeling posture used for people of respectable status, such as a clan leader, kage, or daimyo. Arigato for saving my Masumi daughter. I don't know what I would have done if I lost her that day. Arigato. Sume thanked him, through almost inaudible sobs. Ma, it's alright Inuzuka-san. I already told your daughter that I don't need thanks for what I did. I simply did what was right. That Mizuki person had no right to betray the village like he did, and more importantly treat Hana the way he did. If I wasn't in a rush when I got there, I would have made his death a lot more deserving than I made it. And I'm just glad that Hana got back to her feet. I would have hated to see such a strong and beautiful woman like her sulking over what that asshole did. Naruto said reassuringly, with a slight unseen blush after only realizing what he called Hana. Oh, seems my hopes weren't unfounded. I won't meddle as my Masumi's personal affairs, but that doesn't mean I still can't hope. Sume thought after hearing his words, and little slip up. Sume got up from her position and rejoined the pair at the table, wiping the last remnants of tears from her cheeks. He thinks I'm beautiful. Hana mentally questioned, while trying to hide her light blush at Naruto's compliments. Still, arigato. And please call me Sume, she finished with a smile towards the purple-eyed man, who the two females could tell was smiling back. Anyway, Ka-san, as you know, I never got his name back then, so meeting up with him this morning out of the blue I asked again, but he just answered my question with another question. What do you think of the demon boy Uzumaki Naruto who disappeared from the village 6 years ago? Hana quoted, going back to her story after feeling her blush leave her cheeks. The very moment Hana finished reiterating Naruto's question, Sume's appreciation for the man disappeared, and was replaced with a growling Inuzuka clan head staring back at him. Naruto was quick to apologize for his snafu, hoping the older woman would take it to heart. After a long minute of nothing but light growls from the matriarch, she returned to a neutral stance with the man. I had the same reaction, just a little more physical, which was probably the noise you heard outside. However, before you had come out, I was able to answer his question, but he never answered mine. Both Inuzukas looked expectantly at Naruto once Hana finished, causing Naruto to sweat drop. Anyo, well, Inuzuka-san, before I tell you both, I'd like for you to elaborate on what Hana meant by, my family and I will always be loyal to that boy no matter what. I will admit to you that I know Naruto, quite well in fact. But I don't recall him ever mentioning your clan during our talks about Konoha, that is why I phrased my question the way I did. I purposely did it to see the kind of reaction I'd get out of Hana. Knowing Naruto the way I do, it would be dishonorable to him if I befriended anyone who despised him in this village. I have heard from the boy many stories of how he was treated here, so I had to be sure about Hana's feelings towards him. And since she had stated such a high claim, I wished to simply know what she meant. Sum was pouring herself and the pair the tea while Naruto explained his motives. She took a sip of tea after passing out the cups, and sighed afterwards before speaking. Well, we may not look it, but the Inuzuka clan was actually the personal bodyguards of Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime and Naruto's two-san. Whenever he left the village, whether it be for vacation, war, treaties, no matter the reason, we Inuzuka were always by his side to put our lives on the line to protect him. However, after Minato-sama had settled down with Uzumaki Kushina, Naruto's Ka-san, our priorities changed. He had ordered our clan to not only protect him, but his family as well, since they were an extension of himself. We accepted our new charges with no grievances, and for a time things were normal, well as normal as a life of a shinobi can be anyway. Sum stopped talking for a moment to take another sip of her tea before starting up again. Then, Kyuubi came. Being a Konoha shinobi yourself, I'm sure you know the history, so I won't bore you with the details. Anyway, after the battle, we found Minato-sama dead, but his wife and son still alive, so we continued as their protectors because Minato-sama still lived inside them both. However, 2 years after the Kyuubi's attack, Kushina along with her clan left Konoha for greener pastures, but not before exiling Naruto and leaving him to the savages our clan once called villagers. From that moment, as clan head, I rescinded Minato-sama's order for protection of her. She left the village and, more importantly, abandoned her only child to the Inuzukas. That is unforgivable. After only a few days of being put in the orphanage, I had gone to the Hokage and begged him repeatedly to allow my clan to adopt him. But he wouldn't hear of it. He not only told me that the council would never allow the adoption to go through, but also that he didn't want another one of the important shinobi clans to leave because of the villagers' hate for the boy and anyone who protected him. He simply stated that he would do his best to make sure Naruto was doing okay. So from then on, we just protected Naruto as best we could from the shadows. But with the Hokage giving my clan missions on a daily basis, it was hard to protect him as well as we had hoped. Then 4 years after Kushina's departure, Naruto himself disappeared from the village and hasn't been seen since. But even so, the Inuzuka clan will remain loyal to that boy and protect him as well as his reputation here as best we can, because that was the wish of our greatest hero, and we will honor it no matter what. Sum finished explaining and slammed her cup on the table to emphasize her point. By the time her story had finished, Naruto's eyes widened so much you'd swear they'd pop out any moment. I never knew anyone cared about me that much aside from Oji-san. They were even planning on adopting me. Naruto thought, shocked beyond belief, and actually trying his hardest to not let his features show how happy he was to hear what Sum said. In all honesty, the lonely child that still remained inside him wanted to cry right then. Well, Naru-kun, not everyone in this village is as heartless or stupid as most. I mean, statistically speaking, there had to be at least a few dozen people in this large village that either have no problem with you or even believe you are a savior for your sacrifice. I guess you just met the clan that is at the top of this list. Natsumi said in a warm tone, sending Naruto a mental picture of her giving him a loving embrace, since she couldn't really do it at the moment. Hi, right as usual, Natsu-chan, he thought back with a smile, sending her a mental picture with him giving her a deep kiss. I see. Arigato for your explanation, Sum-san. That answered any lingering questions I had. Naruto spoke quietly before taking a long sip of tea, still trying not to show his emotions. A quick silence rose in the room, the sounds of sipping the only break from it. Hana had watched Naruto the whole time while they listened to her mother's story, and saw a myriad of emotions play through his eyes. She had wanted to question him on several occasions as to why he was reacting so deeply, but decided to wait. However, the silence was getting to her. She had so many questions, and if she didn't get them now, she would probably explode. Okay, so we answered your question, now answer ours. Who are you, and how do you know Naruto? As well as, can you tell us if he is alright at the present time? Should I tell them, Natsu-chan? After that story, I think it's only right, Naru-kun. Other than the Hokage, I can't imagine a group more deserving to know everything that's happened to you than the Inuzukas, especially after all they did for you and your two-san. You're right. Oh, do you want to stretch your legs a bit? Sure. Kage Bushin is fine. Naruto noticed after having his inner dialogue, that both women were starting to get impatiently. He whispered his apologies for the wait, took a sip of tea, let out a deep sigh, and cleared his throat before beginning. Well, I can answer your questions, but in the opposite order you asked them, if that's alright. He asked, getting a confused nod from the female pair. Naruto is perfectly fine right now. He is healthy and is actually training in the shinobi arts. And if I may say, he is quite good, but that's besides the point. Your last two questions I can actually answer at the same time. I know Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto because he paused his sentence, and went through a set of hand seals, before a puff of smoke shrouded his side of the table. Quote, I am Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. He finished, as the last of the smoke disappeared, leaving Naruto in his true form, and Natsumi next to him, while both Inuzuka women gawked at who they were looking at. What the hell is this? You aren't Naruto, you look nothing like him. Sum shouted, jumping from the table into a defensive stance, her nin dog coming out of nowhere to her side ready to fight. Hana herself was simply too shocked at the person sitting in front of her to even move at first, but then came to her senses and jumped towards her mother. Please wait. I really am Naruto, just give me a minute to explain. I can prove I'm him. He pleaded. Hana just stared at the demonic-looking man, searching his eyes for any inclination of deceit. She just stared into his purple orbs, almost hypnotized by them. As she stared, something in the pit of her stomach pulled on her brain. She wasn't sure why, but it was simply telling her to trust what he is telling them, and ever since Mizuki's betrayal, following her gut instinct has gotten her out of a lot of situations that could have cost her her life. After a moment of inner debate, she released her stance and stood upright, letting out a soft sigh. Ka-san. I believe him. Sum only took a split second to look in her daughter's eyes, and knew that it was her gut that told her to believe him. She took a long angry look at Naruto, before releasing a heavy sigh and standing from her stance as well. You have 1 minute. Naruto, she spoke, almost growling out the name. Naruto mouthed a silent, "Thank you," to Hana for diffusing the situation, before letting the women get back to their seats at the table. Anyo, well, I somehow doubt words will prove my heritage, so a technique only a select few including my father could know, of which I'm sure you'll recognize. He said before putting his hand, palm up and open in the middle of the table so everyone could see. For a moment nothing happened, but then a slight wind began to pick up around the room seeming to be pulled towards Naruto's palm. Soon after the wind picked up even more and in his palm an almost marble-sized translucent purple ball of chakra formed. The wind picked up slightly more when the ball increased size exponentially, to cover up most of Naruto's still opened hand. As the winds died down, the last bit of swirling chakra entered the ball, finishing the summoning of the jutsu. Ra, Senator. Gone. Sum spoke through shocked breaths, from not only not seeing this jutsu after so many years, but that this man really had learned and mastered it. Hana had only heard about this famous jutsu from her family, gossip, and historical records of the Yondaime Hokage. However, seeing it merely inches from her was mind-blowing. To her the jutsu was beautiful. The swirling winds inside the stable ball looked like the winds were dancing together. If she didn't know just how dangerous the jutsu was, she probably would have been tempted to touch it, but it wasn't one of the Yondaime's signature moves for nothing. Naruto looked at the two sheepishly. Well, I hope this proves to you who I really am. Because of your clan's history with my two-san, I'm sure you know that jutsu can only be learned by a select few people. Those being any of his blood kin including myself, or an Uzumaki because of their Kekkei Genkei and his marriage to Uzumaki Kushina. But as I'm sure you know, because of the difficulty and power of this jutsu, only the next Uzumaki shinobi heir and clan head are allowed to learn it. Naruto paused his explanation for a moment to let them understand where he was going with this. Once he got the nods of approval from them, he continued. Well, since my two-san is dead, and I'm obviously in Konoha, instead of with the Uzumaki clan, it means that I can only be a blood relative, and Namikaze Minato only had one son, me. Plus, who else do you know that has whisker marks on his face? He finished, before pulling his mask down to finally reveal his full face to the women. Only a second after losing his mask was he tackled to the ground by a sobbing Sum. He was so surprised by her emotional outburst, in fact he almost lost his grip on the Rasengan, but dispelled it before it left his hand. Naruto, you're back. I didn't know if I'd ever see you again after you left the village. Sum sobbed out into his chest. Naruto was still shocked, before he was able to regain his composure and smile at the crying women on top of him. He slowly pulled her into a hug, and just said soothing words of apologies. After some time Sum regained some slight composure and let go of the man, but before she was able to move off him he pulled her back to him and he gave her another embrace, before whispering something in her ear. Arigato Sum-san, and Gomen for making you worry about me for so long. Ka-san. Sum physically stiffened at what Naruto just called her. She pulled away slightly to look up at the man, and saw a genuine smile across his fang face, and happiness in his eyes. She smiled back and hugged him once more, tears flowing again. After about another 5 minutes the two calmed down and separated, both joining the table at their original positions. Well, I'm glad everything worked out here. I was afraid things would get messy if Naru-kun wasn't able to explain who he was. Natsumi said nonchalantly with a small smile, taking a sip of tea from Naruto's cup. Both Hana and Sum looked back at the women who almost seemed to come out of nowhere, though both being a bit sheepish knowing that this was just because they ignored her presence from Naruto being back. Gomen, but who are you? Hana questioned. Well, I just wanted to wait till Naru-kun finished his introduction before mine. This is Natsumi. She is my companion, and has been since I left the village 6 years ago. Naruto explained, trying not to blush too much when she slung herself around his arm, resting her head on his shoulder. Both Inuzuka women perched an eyebrow at the two, each having a thought about it, not knowing just how similar they were. This girl is getting a bit too close to him. Wait, why do I care if she is close to Naruto-kun? Wait, did I just say, kun? I mean, yay, the guy are gorgeous, but that doesn't mean I like him or anything, does it? I mean, we just really met, even if he did save me back then. Hana thought, a debate now raging in her head about her feelings of the newly discovered Naruto. Seems he might be taken after all. Well, unless Hana gets it together, she is gonna lose him. And I really do think he'll be so good for her. Sum thought, hoping her daughter would get out of her man rut, and just claim Naruto as hers. Naruto, noting the intense gazes he was getting, tried to change the subject, before either of them had a chance to question him. Anyo. I'm rather surprised, to be honest. When I went to go see Oji-san, even he and Yamato-san freaked about how I looked. But you guys don't seem fazed at all. Both women were knocked out of their thoughts when he spoke. Sum was the first to get her answer out, and chuckled a bit. Naruto, look at us. We have inherited canine traits as a clan thanks to our kinship with our nin dogs. Slitted eyes, slight fangs and claws, increased sense of smell, etc. You would look a lot different to most people, but to our clan you don't look all that different from us, other than the ears and tails anyway. She remarked with a small smirk. Naruto looked at both his mother and Hana, and realized that she was right. Save for his tails and ears, he would look almost like an Inuzuka. Though I would like to know where you got them from, Sum said with a glint of curiosity in her eyes. Actually, I will be explaining everything that's happened to me for the last 6 years to Oji-san tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., and well, I feel it only right that anyone from the Inuzuka clan who would wish to come and listen to my story as well as welcome to. He responded with a smile. I will tell my clan about it and let them decide for themselves, but I will go. I'd like to know what my old charge has been up to for the last 6 years. She answered with a light chuckle. He laughed with her. Good, but sadly it's getting dark. We've been talking for a long time, and I'm actually quite tired after just getting back today from a 6-year vacation. Naruto flashed through some hand seals, letting the smoke envelope him and Natsumi, giving him the look he had before he revealed himself to them, and Natsumi back in the seal. He got up from his seat, bowed to his hosts, thanking them for believing him and their hospitality, before walking towards the exit. Sum nodded to him, and looked down at the table, slightly downcast for a second while biting her lip in fear. Should I ask him? She thought. Said question raging through her head like a hurricane, not receiving any clear answer in her mind out of sheer fear of Naruto's answer. Naruto. She stuttered. He turned back to the matriarch. Hi, I need to know if you really meant it when you called me Ka-san. She asked, fear and apprehensiveness evident in her eyes. He smiled warmly at his new